If you're on TikTok and you happen to come across this delightful little elf on the shelf, chances are you're about to hear an extremely bad take. For instance, what does this even mean?
So I can't assume your gender, but you can assume I'm racist?
Take that, liberals! I guess. This smarmy sphinx posting right-wing riddles while he snacks is John McEntee, former director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office under Donald Trump and co-founder of The Right Stuff, a dating app for conservatives with a very important rule.
No Democrats.
Can't be a Democrat.
No Democrats. It's a no.
In fact, they're so worried that dirty Democrats will infiltrate the app to get handouts from this prime dating pool that each individual user profile has to be manually reviewed by the company before you're allowed access. And they aren't in any hurry to do that, according to the hordes of horny patriots that have apparently had to wait days, weeks, or even months to get approved. Probably because John is too busy owning the libs in every restaurant across the United States.
Genders are like the Twin Towers. There used to be 2 of them, but now it's kind of a sensitive subject.
But the app must be extremely successful, because they haven't felt the need to promote it at all in the last year. Like at all. Every post on the Date Right Stuff TikTok page uses the same basic formula. With a twinkle in his blueberry eyes, John confidently recites an anti-SJW meme he found on iFunny in 2014, then nods and smiles, as if he just said something profound.
Liberals always say prepare for the future, but how will we if everyone's either aborted or transgender?
Are you aborted or transgender? Tag yourself down below. Now, some of you might remember I actually talked about this guy a while back, but he's posted a lot of content since then, and his audience has only continued to grow, with over 3 million combined followers across TikTok and Instagram. One of his favorite things to do is cosplay what he thinks a liberal is.
This glass is half empty. No, this glass is half full. The water is racist.
You can't even tell the joke properly. God, do I have to do everything myself around here? This glass is half empty. No, this glass is half full. Guys, shouldn't we ask the glass what it identifies as? There you go. I fixed your joke for you. You're welcome. John seems to hold 2 contradictory views of what liberals are at the same time. Liberals are somehow these helpless, sensitive, fringe deviants that normal society points and laughs at.
Liberal at Christmas.
I don't want to get all political, but who bought the boys Nerf guns?
Liberal at a football game.
Are the better teams ever forced to give points to the bad teams?
No.
They should look into that.
While simultaneously being these intolerant, all-powerful figures, working in the shadows, outnumbering the last remnants of common-sense Americans, and hell-bent on destroying their lives.
Love is love. We just want acceptance. We just want equality. Bake the cake or go to court. Say my pronouns or lose your job. Your kids will watch drag shows.
Ah, yes, I remember my first state-mandated drag show like it was yesterday. Snatched from my mother's arms and planted in the front row at the Rainbow Bar. When I saw Anita Man do the splits while lip-syncing Blondie, I knew I'd never stand for the pledge again. Liberals are the least tolerant people on this planet. Liberals are creating a crime and sin against God Almighty, who created male out of his own image, then female. The wrath of God is coming! These 2 comments were literally right next to each other.
So if you spank your kid, you might go to jail? But if you don't spank your kid, they might end up a liberal? Parenting can be kind of tricky these days.
Well, didn't work on me. Maybe a couple more smacks across the ass will do it. Do we have any volunteers?
We live in a time where intelligent people are being silenced so that stupid people won't be offended.
So, which one are you? Because your voice sure is echoing off the walls of that ice cream shop while the gentleman behind you tries to enjoy his dessert. But before we continue, I'd like to take a second to talk about today's sponsor, Liquid IV. Summer is quickly approaching, and here in Texas, that means months of blazing, unbearable heat. It's more important than ever to stay hydrated, and Liquid IV is here to help. Their sugar-free hydration multiplier electrolyte drink mix offers 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink with 0 artificial sweeteners, using their proprietary amino acid allulose blend. Whether you're running, hiking, or swimming this summer, these hydration multiplier sticks are easy to grab on the go, allowing for superior hydration than with just water alone. The raspberry melon flavor has a subtle sweet taste that I really enjoy and is only 15 calories per stick. I tend to stay inside as much as possible between the months of May and September, but when I do venture out into the burning light like a vampire crawling out of a crypt for a quick mental health walk, I need as much hydration as I can get. A big thanks to Liquid IV for sponsoring this video. If you want to stay hydrated this summer, make sure to click the link in my description to try out Liquid IV for yourself. The Date Right Stuff TikTok page is a great way to keep your finger on the red, white, and blue pulse of the Republican Party, since John's TikToks are basically just the Spark Notes version of whatever conservatives happen to be upset about at any given point in time. Specifically, the existence of trans people.
Ever notice that dogs only come in male and female, and even if you chop the balls off one, it's still a male?
I don't know if we should be looking to dogs for advice on how to live our lives, seeing as every dog I've ever owned has devoured their own shit like a succulent Chinese meal at least once, but hey, let's use your logic. Let's take a look at the wacky and wonderful world of the animal kingdom. Female hyenas have functioning penises, and they use them to do butt stuff with their boyfriends. Male seahorses are the ones that get pregnant, not the females. Score for the ladies. Frogs can change their sex based on environmental factors. You don't even want to know what these evil little bastards get up to. All this to say, I think it's a weird and pointless exercise to base an argument about humans on the behavior or anatomy of a completely different species. Anyone who makes this kind of appeal is more likely trying to have a gotcha moment than make a cogent argument, but I think that's kind of the whole problem with the Date Right Stuff account. I don't think these TikToks are being made in good faith. Rather than trying to convince people of beliefs that will maybe better society, John seems to only care about making videos that will get people hashtag triggered for viewership. But judging by the amount of views and likes on his videos, it seems like the things he says are popular with a lot of people, so I'll be treating his TikToks as sincerely as his audience does.
If your main concern is what pronouns people call you, then you're one of the most privileged people in the world.
You know what, John? I actually agree with you here. I think in light of the endless tragedy happening all over the world, it is a privilege for those of us who can take the time to have these nuanced discussions about gender. But if being concerned about what pronouns people call you makes you one of the most privileged people in the world, what does that make someone whose main concern is what pronouns someone else is called? Now, that's a real thinker.
So a 20-year-old can't have alcohol, but a 5-year-old can pick their gender?
I think the solution is pretty obvious, John. Let the kids drink beer. It'll boost their immune systems. Boom, next question. John is very concerned about the next generation and spends many videos describing a fictional universe he created where children aren't being taught math or geography or English, but are spending 8 hours a day in wokenomics being taught the trans agenda.
So, son, what'd you learn in school today? Multiplication tables? No. The state capitals? No. Spelling? No. Well, tell me what you learned. Men can get pregnant.
Yeah, the education system is a disaster. Kids need to learn useful skills to help them through life, like, financial responsibility. You know, how to pay your taxes and invest your money, and how to not get fired from your job after being investigated by the Department of Homeland Security because of your insane amounts of gambling debt.
Breaking details about another sudden dismissal at the White House. A personal aide to President Trump escorted out of the White House.
You know, just as an example.
So talking to adults at work about sex is sexual harassment, but talking to kids at school about sex is necessary? Strange times.
Imagine trying to sit down and have a nice meal with your family when you're interrupted by a Republican loudly not understanding the difference between age-appropriate scientific discussions of the human body and telling Jan from accounting that she has a nice rack during an earnings call.
If you see a bulge in a conservative woman's pants, it's a gun. If you see a bulge in a liberal woman's pants,
You get excited, right? Yeah. Speaking of guns, I'm sure John has some really helpful suggestions for gun control policy.
if gun-free zones work, why don't we set up free zones?
Why don't we have zones where you aren't allowed to assault people? My name is Funky and I'm here to say there aren't any places where is okay. You try to compare and gun violence, that's a fallacy called false equivalence. Because while being shot or is bad, there's an important distinction to be had. Depending on your hobby or occupation, there are exceptions to firearm legislation. So sometimes it's okay to use a gun, but you should seriously never someone, because this is something that you should know. Everywhere you go is a free zone. Ooh. Nope, not there. Not there either. Well, I hope that clears everything up for you. Let's move on.
Liberal white women complain that it's too dangerous to walk alone at night, and then they sign petitions to release violent criminals out of prison.
The United States has the largest incarcerated population of any country in the world, and also ranks extremely high in prisoners per capita. The war on drugs locked up thousands for simple marijuana possession, and most efforts for prison reform have been focused on non-violent offenders. Besides, most women would tell you that the type of guy to attack them in the dead of night is often not a violent criminal. It might even be a Stanford student athlete named Brock Allen Turner, a promising young man with no criminal record and a bright future in Olympic swimming who likes to go by his middle name after spending only 3 months in jail. But you don't seem like the biggest fan of listening to women, now do you, John?
So basically, feminism is the idea that women are free when they serve their employers, but slaves when they serve their husband and children?
Oh, John, my sweet, sweet comrade, you are so close. You're right there. This is an obvious straw man argument. What feminism actually states is that women should have the right to choose between working for an employer or providing domestic labor at home. Because we can have a really interesting discussion about whether it's possible to have freedom working within our current late-stage capitalist society, but the fact of the matter is, serving your husband and children is unpaid labor. And if someone doesn't have a choice in participating in unpaid labor, that would make them a...
So the least masculine society in human history has decided that masculinity is a growing threat.
When men like this complain about the attack on masculinity happening in our society, it always makes me laugh because they don't even fulfill the standards for masculinity that they claim to defend. You play pretend on TikTok for a living. You look more out of place in a Home Depot than a Butch and Victoria's Secret. You daintily dip your froyo into a bowl of sprinkles with a limp wrist. Thank God society is reevaluating what it means to be masculine, or you wouldn't make the cut, Tiger.
Well, we made it to Chicago, where you know what they say, come for the food and stay because you got shot.
Hey, I was just there. I actually vlogged it, and you can go watch that on my Patreon. Spoiler alert, I didn't get shot. John really likes to complain about things like gun violence and homelessness, systemic societal issues that also ravage red state populations. But then he turns around and blames it all on the evils of liberalism.
Los Angeles is run exclusively by Democrats, and they're the ones that say they're going to clean up the environment.
Hey, John, you're stomping through a homeless encampment shouting about Democrats while comparing the human beings behind you to literal trash and pollutants. I understand that you consider yourself to be a good Christian man. That's not a very epic, what would Jesus do moment for you.
It shouldn't matter who you love. I love Jesus.
Cool. So we're just gonna ignore that the Pew Research Center found that 52% of liberals self-identify as Christian, with 45% stating that they believe in God with, quote, absolute certainty, because those are facts, and they don't care about your feeling that everyone who disagrees with you politically is a godless heathen who wants to persecute you for worshiping Jesus. A Jesus that, I'm gonna be honest, John, I don't think would like you very much.
Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But deport a man, and you never have to feed him again.
It's so funny that you mention fish, because the Jesus I'm familiar with famously turned 5 loaves and 2 fish into enough food to feed thousands of people as described in Matthew chapter 14. He did this knowing that the mouths of the very same people munching on his welfare miracle would soon be screaming, "Crucify him." I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting comparison. Look, I could do this all day. Seriously, it's kind of fun. But in the time it took me to write and record this, not even including editing, John has pumped out like 13 more TikToks, accruing millions of views. John doesn't cite any research or credit any peer-reviewed articles, he just states his opinion as fact, smirks at the camera, and continues with his meal. In under 10 seconds, he confirms the misinformed hatred and fear of millions of people, spreads alarmist talking points, and stokes political divisions. Meanwhile, it takes someone like me multiple hours to untangle just a handful of his posts. This, sucks. I can only hope that cutting through all my stupid jokes and cutaway gags, videos like this can at least let someone out there know that there are people on the internet that actually... You forgot my drink, idiot!